I'm not a racist, preach the teacher. You still they never had this. Number one, them wanna run about the gun. I wasn't licensed to have one. The minute they see me, fear me. I'm the epitome, a public enemy. Use, abuse, without clues. I refuse to blow fuse. They even had it on the news. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Back when I wrote y'all, yes.
I want to play this Charlamagne clip because he raised something, and I'm just curious if it's in fact in alignment with how we should be thinking about this election cycle. Play it, Smith.
One place where I think they mess up in regards to messaging, like, you'll listen to a lot of reporters and they'll be talking to Trump or J.D. Vance and they'll be talking to them about things that are happening right here in America. Mm-hmm. Because it is an election season right here in America. So it's so many things that we care about here, like, mm-hmm. right? So it's always America first. But then, you go to Tim Walz and they're asking him about geopolitical politics. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times that makes them sound, very out of touch. It makes them sound very out of touch to what's actually going on right here in America.
Or talking about things that's happening overseas and not talking about what's here. But that's what they're being asked.
Exactly. Not saying that stuff is important, but that stuff gets highlighted over, what's happening right here in this country. And when you hear, the Vances and the Trumps talking about what's happening here at home and saying things like America first and make America great again, that messaging sometimes resonates a lot more.
Absolutely.
Not sometimes, it does resonate a lot more.
Because people they live in it.
Exactly, because you saw what happened in North Carolina. As soon as you, I think this weekend they announced how much money they were sending to, I think it was Lebanon. Mm-hmm. People got outraged. They was like, yo, what about us right here in North Carolina? Mm-hmm. So like that America First messaging goes much farther, especially during election season.
Yep.
Yeah. We had a caller, was it yesterday, who... and it was a brother who I think is an avid listener and, he seems engaged. And he was like, we send money to different places. And I think that's a valid question. But again, what is the media's responsibility? If they're only asking about Israel and they're asking about Russia and they're asking, because in the 60 Minutes interview, that was the first question. The first question that Bill Whitaker asked Kamala Harris was about Russia. About Israel. And then it got into China. And then it got into who's our biggest threat? And she said Iran. And it was a geopolitical question from the door, not about America. And I do think as a nation, when I first started doing radio 20 plus years ago in New York, I printed out a list of all of the monies sent to other nations and how much. And I was stunned by who gets our money and why. But all of that goes down in Congress, right? And they make these decisions. And as Americans, it's always like, throw the rock, hide your hand. For us, we don't even know what's going on until election time when these things come to the table. But there's a whole, you can Google search right now, foreign aid. United States foreign aid, who gets the bulk of the money? My question is always why? What's the exchange? But we're not beating that gong like midterms or right after. We should be beating that gong though, because there is a point to be made. If we're sending money to different places and we don't have money for the citizens here to do X, Y, and Z, that's a problem. But I also know we print money. We find money. We print money. We spend, I believe, too much on the military. More of that money should be directed towards domestic policies and domestic concerns. Under a Trump administration, he was dismantling all domestic agencies. There would be no more money going to education. Hell, he put Betsy DeVos in charge of that. We talk about the FDA and federal regulations on food and drugs. And no, that wouldn't happen. And we need more research. I saw, was it Bill Nye, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson said how sad it is that these hurricanes are going to become more and more dangerous and more violent. And we don't have the infrastructure intellectually to think our way out of how to provide better infrastructure for our cities. If you look at a place like China or Japan, which has few people, but China that has a lot of people, their subway system They got bullet trains. We don't. Like, they're ready for a unfortunate catastrophe. I think minus a earthquake that might take them out. But we're not prepared, and we don't have innovation. We don't foment that. We're not encouraging that. We're not funding the geniuses that are going to think their way through how we survive as a country. I mean, everything from power shouldn't go out. It just shouldn't go out. We should have solved that already, right? But that speaks to leadership. And if you care about money going to other places, which I actually do, I don't ever hear us banging that gong until somebody brings it up, a month or two from election day. And then what are we going to do about it then? If that's an issue, it should have always been an issue, because it's always been an issue. So I'm just, I don't know what Charlamagne's point is or what his purpose is, but even his co-host said those are the questions the media are asking them. So should they not answer the questions and say, hey, we should talk about domestic policies, which they do? I mean, she's always going to shift the conversation back to the tax, child tax credit and the first time home buyer, fund that they're going to give $25,000 and the $50,000 to new businesses. I mean, they got some really good domestic policies that will help a whole lot of us. But I'm just wondering, what are you voting on? And is anybody swayed by a conversation like that? But more importantly, why is that your conversation around this election cycle? And giving kudos to the messaging of Make America Great Again, when written into that phrase is a notion that somehow you and I, people who look like us, need to not be here for America to be great. So any policy that will put us in our proper place is one that I think they're talking about when they say Make America Great Again. Get rid of these immigrants. But the subtext of the immigrants is me and you. Underneath that is you and me as well. Are we that obtuse? Are we that obtuse? I hope not.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.